It happened over steak and red wine like something out of a bad drama. My father stood at the head of the table during our annual family business dinner, what was supposed to be a celebration of another record-breaking year. The team was there, the senior partners, a few legacy clients, and, of course, Jason and me. He raised his glass. "I have an announcement," he said, smiling. "Effective next quarter, I'll be stepping down as CEO, and I'm officially handing the company to your brother." There was a pause, one long, heavy silence. I froze fork mid-air. Every eye turned to me expecting a reaction. Anger, tears, maybe some kind of breakdown, but I didn't give them that. I smiled, nodded, clinked my glass to his. "To the next generation," I said evenly. No one noticed my handshake as I took the sip. What they didn't know was that I had landed 3 major accounts that year, clients who had nearly tripled our revenue. I'd spent every week flying across states pitching to boardrooms full of suits who didn't take a family business seriously until I gave them no choice. I stayed late, traveled often, and spent the last decade building something that could outgrow our last name. Jason. He never showed up before noon. He bailed on internal reviews. He once sent a client a pitch deck that still had "insert slide here" in the final draft. I spent more time cleaning up his messes than building my own momentum. But still, Dad chose him. I should have seen it coming. Jason had been sitting in on more meetings lately, nodding at things he didn't understand, repeating phrases I'd said weeks earlier as if they were his. Dad had started asking me fewer questions, deflecting praise, calling my contributions team efforts. It wasn't about performance, it was about inheritance. After Mom died, Dad changed. The man who once called me his right hand started saying things like boys lead, girls support. I brushed it off as grief, as age, as pressure, but deep down I knew he was never going to hand the company to his daughter. I excused myself early from the dinner. My office was still lit when I got there. I sat at my desk, stared at the framed photo of me at 22, fresh-faced and naive, standing beside Dad on my first day, and felt something inside me click into place. Not sadness, not betrayal, clarity. They could have the company. I'd take everything that made it valuable. I opened my laptop and made a list. Clients I brought in, projects I led, contacts that reached out to me, not Jason for direction strategy results, relationships I had nurtured for years, my relationships, my reputation. I didn't need a fight, I needed an exit. Quiet, surgical, irreversible. Because if my father thought Jason was ready to lead, I was going to give him the chance. Without me, and without the people who made the business what it was. I leaned back in my chair, stared at the ceiling, and let out a slow breath. I wouldn't slam the door when I left. I'd take the hinges with me. I joined the company the week after my college graduation degree in business strategy, still crisp in its frame, heart full of fire, and not even a whisper of resentment in my chest. Back then, the office was smaller. The chairs squeaked. The logo looked like it came from a Word template, and the biggest client we had sold industrial packaging. But I didn't care. It was my father's company. Our family's name was on the door. I believed in legacy. For the first few years, I said yes to everything. Late-night pitch decks, emergency site visits, coffee runs for entire client teams when the intern didn't show. I wasn't the boss's daughter in the room, I was the one holding it together. When Jason missed meetings, I covered. When he forgot client birthdays, I remembered. When he straight up disappeared for a weekend during a major product launch, I took the lead and salvaged the whole project. Dad used to laugh and say, "You've got the grit your brother doesn't." He'd pat my shoulder and tell Jason, "Watch your sister, she's got more hustle than half the department." I held on to those words like gold. But then Mom passed away. She was the only one who ever called me the future of the company. The only one who told Dad to his face that gender didn't determine leadership. After her funeral, everything started to shift. The warmth in Dad's eyes cooled. He started using words like balance and tradition. He said things like Jason needs a chance to step up, and It's not your job to carry the whole firm, Natalie. When I pushed back, he told me I was too emotional, too controlling, too much. The irony was brutal. I had sacrificed my 20s passed on vacations, relationships, sleep to build something real, to earn it. And I wasn't asking for a crown, I just wanted credit, acknowledgement, a future with my name on it. But slowly, he started positioning Jason in places he didn't belong. He invited him to executive strategy calls, gave him a speaking slot at our client summit. Jason stumbled through every appearance, spouting half-understood jargon and smiling through questions he couldn't answer. I watched clients tilt their heads confused. I watched our staff exchange glances. And I watched Dad beam with pride. Once when I privately voiced concern after Jason completely fumbled a budget projection during a board meeting, Dad just looked at me and said, "Boys, lead, girls, support Natalie." That's just how it's always been. It hit me like a slap. That wasn't mentorship. That wasn't oversight. That was a decision, a belief. I told myself to hang in there. That maybe Dad would see my results again, that maybe Jason would implode quickly and things would right themselves. But that family dinner proved me wrong. Jason wasn't just being tolerated, he was being handed my work. And Dad didn't even have the decency to tell me in private. He did it over wine and applause in front of clients I had landed in front of executives who had seen me grind for years. And the most insulting part? He didn't even think I'd leave. He thought I'd stay, swallow it, smile through it, keep doing the real work while Jason posed in the photos. He forgot the most important thing I ever learned from him. When someone underestimates you, that's when you're most dangerous. At first, I chalked it up to coincidence. Jason sitting in on my client meetings, maybe Dad was just trying to train him. My pitch getting delayed by a week, maybe scheduling conflicts. The cold emails from clients I'd personally grown for years. Maybe they were just distracted. But when I saw the quarterly report, all doubt disappeared. There it was, one of my key accounts, West Grove Tech, listed as a new acquisition under Jason's name. The same client I had flown to meet 3 times last year. The same team that texted me directly when they wanted updates. The same project whose scope I had personally designed. I stared at the line item like it might rewrite itself. But it didn't. It just sat there like a signature on a betrayal. The real blow came 2 days later. We had a company-wide presentation to prep our yearly vision pitch to investors. I had worked on it for weeks. I'd built the deck from scratch, styled the messaging, even written most of the forward-looking growth projections. The night before the presentation, I was told Jason would be giving it. That was odd. He hadn't even been in half the prep meetings. But fine. Maybe Dad wanted to elevate him. Still, something didn't sit right. So, I went digging. I found the final slide deck saved in the shared drive marked Approved Final. I opened it. My stomach flipped. It was my pitch, my exact layout phrases I'd workshopped with clients, even the slide order I'd carefully built for narrative flow. But in the corner, prepared by Jason Kim. Not a single mention of me. I clicked through slide by slide, mouth-dry rage simmering low and quiet. All my strategy, all my polish, all my voice scrubbed clean of my name. I closed the laptop slowly, set it aside, and stared out the window of my office. They weren't sidelining me. They were erasing me. And the worst part, Jason wasn't clever enough to pull this off alone. This was my father. Rewriting the story from behind the curtain. In the hallway that afternoon, I overheard 2 interns chatting. I heard Jason landed West Grove once said, "Guess he's finally stepping up." I didn't interrupt. I just walked back into my office and locked the door. I thought about the 10 years I'd given, the promotions I earned but had to ask for, the holidays I skipped, the weekends I worked, the times I covered for Jason and got scolded anyway. All the moments I tried to believe I was being groomed for leadership when in reality I was just useful, a stopgap, a shadow. That night I stopped hoping. I stopped wishing that maybe Dad would come around, that Jason would grow up, that somehow it would all balance out. And I started planning. Not a tantrum, not a revenge plot, a strategy, the kind that doesn't need a name in bold print to have impact. The kind I was known for. I wasn't going to burn the house down. I was going to walk out and take the foundation with me, brick by client by brick. Because if they thought they were building something without me, they were about to find out what happened when the architect leaves. I didn't slam a door or scream down a hallway. I played the long game. First, I bought a domain name, kimstrategygroup.com. Clean, professional, familiar but mine. Then I quietly filed paperwork to form an LLC under a new name, KSG Consulting and Co-Ops. It wasn't flashy, but it didn't need to be. It needed to be real. Next came the outreach. Not mass emails, not LinkedIn blasts, just private personal messages one at a time. I reached out to the clients I had spent years nurturing, the ones who texted me at 10 p.m. with last-minute requests, the ones who asked me, not Jason, for final approval. Every message was simple, just between us. I'm thinking of starting something new. If I do, I'd love to stay connected. I didn't have to pitch. They responded with things like, let me know where you go, I'll follow. Say the word, and we're there. Frankly, you're the only reason we stayed this long. By the end of the week, I had soft commitments from 7 major clients. 4 of them were in our top 10 revenue bracket. While Dad and Jason were busy planning their new leadership era, I was drafting contracts, lining up NDAs, and selecting a co-working space across town. Bare bones, but mine. Elaine, my former assistant, resigned quietly 2 days after I did. She became my first hire. I was just waiting for you to go, she said. You were the company. The irony, I didn't take a single file. Not one proposal, not one deck. Everything I needed was already in my head. I knew their pain points, their competitors, their growth plans. I had written half of them myself. All I needed was the green light. So I waited until Thursday morning. Jason came in an hour late carrying a smoothie and a pair of designer sunglasses. Dad was already in his office, too busy to look up when I knocked. I'm handing in my resignation, I said, placing the letter on his desk. He didn't glance at it. We'll talk next week. I won't be here next week, I said calmly. Today is my last day. That got his attention. Excuse me? I smiled. I've made arrangements. He narrowed his eyes. Are you being poached? No, I said. I built something better. Before he could speak, Jason sauntered in. He saw the envelope, smirked. Didn't take the announcement too well, huh? I looked him in the eyes. I took it exactly how I needed to. He chuckled. Well, good luck out there. We'll be just fine. I nodded. I'm counting on it. I walked out that day without a single raised voice or dramatic exit. No one clapped. No one begged me to stay. But in my inbox were 7 signed contracts. I called Elaine. We're live. We move fast. Client onboarding, email setups, project kickoffs. My first check cleared within 48 hours. By Monday, we were in full swing. By Friday, I had already doubled what I would have earned in a quarter under Jason's leadership. I didn't gloat. I didn't post on social media. I just built, brick by brick. And when the phone rang a week later from a number I knew by heart, I let it go to voicemail. Dad had finally noticed the silence, but he hadn't yet felt the storm. 3 days after I walked out, the first client terminated. It was Westgrove Tech, the account I'd landed 2 years ago, the one Jason had tried to take credit for in the investor deck. Their letter was addressed to me, not my father, not Jason. It read, out of respect for your professionalism and clarity, we'll be continuing with your new firm effective immediately. By the end of the week, 6 more clients followed. Most didn't even bother with formalities. They simply redirected their retainers to KSG Consulting and notified my father's firm that strategic needs have shifted. Jason tried to recover. He called them, emailed them, even sent personalized gift boxes. But you can't fake relationships built on trust. You can't charm your way back into loyalty you never earned. One client replied, "We're staying with the person who actually showed up." By Monday, I got a call. It was my father. He didn't say hello. "What the hell have you done?" he snapped. I sipped my coffee, leaned back in my chair, and said, "Exactly what you trained me to do. Build value, deliver results, earn trust. You've poached nearly every top-tier client we have." "No," I said calmly. "They left. I just gave them a door." He went quiet. I imagined him sitting at his desk, staring at my old chair, wondering how the daughter he overlooked had suddenly become the storm he couldn't contain. "You're ruining your own family." "No," I said again. "I'm just done letting my family ruin me." He hung up without another word. 2 days later, Jason showed up at my new office, unannounced. Elaine buzzed me and whispered, "He looks like he just rolled out of bed and tried to pretend it was on purpose." I smiled. "Send him in." He swaggered through the door like he still thought he had leverage. "Wow," he said, glancing around. "Looks startup-y." I gestured toward the couch. "What do you want, Jason?" He flopped down like he owned the place. "Let's be real. You've made your point. You're clearly pissed and fine. Maybe you deserve a little credit. But this whole independent thing, it's temporary. You don't have the infrastructure. You're just one person." I tilted my head. One person who took 70% of the firm's revenue in under a week. He blinked, then forced a laugh. "Whatever, you'll burn out. You'll come crawling back." I stood and walked to the door. "Jason, the difference between us is simple. You inherited a title. I earned relationships. And you can't inherit trust." As I opened the door, he didn't move. "Dad's freaking out, he muttered. "He didn't think you'd actually leave." I nodded. "He thought I'd be grateful for scraps. That I'd stay loyal to a name while you bled the company dry." "You're overreacting." "No," I said. "You're underestimating. And that's why you're losing." He walked out without another word. I stood there for a moment, breathing it all in, the silence, the control, the clarity. That night, I got a text from one of our legacy clients. "We've never felt more heard. Thank you for being the real deal." I screenshotted it, not to brag, just to remind myself. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about restoration. And every deal Jason lost was a story I no longer had to rewrite. By the start of the next quarter, the cracks had turned into craters. Jason was floundering. The meetings he once waltzed into with a grin now ended in silence and sighs. The same employees who used to cover for him were either walking out or asking me for interviews. I didn't recruit them. I didn't have to. They came willingly. One by one, resumes from project. Managers, designers' account, coordinators flooded my inbox. Some sent cover letters, others sent confessions. "I stayed for your leadership, not the name. You were the glue. Without you, it's just chaos. I want to build something real with you." Elaine forwarded the messages to me at the end of each day with subject lines like, "Another one sees the light." I hired carefully 3 in the first month. We moved into a bigger space. I swapped the temporary desks for real ones. Our first interns started 2 weeks later, and my calendar was full, not with damage control, but opportunity. Meanwhile, the family company bled. Jason couldn't keep the numbers straight. Client feedback went unaddressed. Projects stalled. He missed a major pitch with a global brand because he'd misplaced the Zoom link. They pulled out of the deal. And online, the backlash began. A mid-level developer posted a thread titled, "What It's Like When Leadership is an Inherited Title." It went viral. Clients started whispering, then unsubscribing, then leaving. Their downfall wasn't loud, it was embarrassing and deeply publicly visible. Dad called again. This time he didn't yell. He sounded tired. "I think I made a mistake," he said. I was driving when the call came through. I pulled over, parked in silence, let the words hang in the air like fog. "A mistake," I repeated. He exhaled. "I should have seen what you built. What you meant to the company, to the clients. But you didn't," I said. "And it's not just about me, it's about the people you dismissed because they didn't fit your idea of legacy." I wanted to keep it in the family, he said weakly. I almost laughed. It is in the family, I replied. It's just not yours anymore. That was the last time we spoke for a while. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need his approval because by then the numbers spoke louder than either Easter Yersh of Yuri I Yuri Hawaii Ius E ever I Chichir Yuri Shiri E. His company, our former company, lost nearly half its revenue. Layoffs started, client churn hit double digits. PR was a mess. Jason disappeared from the leadership page within 6 months. I heard through the grapevine that he'd stepped down. Translation: someone finally convinced Dad to cut his losses, but it was too late. He had given away the company's name, and I had walked away with the only thing that ever mattered: the legacy. Not just the revenue, not just the clients, the reputation, the relationships, the trust. The thing they never saw me building because it wasn't in spreadsheets or titles. It was in every 2 a.m. reply, every client deck I customized, every birthday gift I remembered without being asked. Now when people said Kim, they meant me. Not the building, not the letterhead. Me. I didn't gloat, but I didn't grieve either. Because when someone gives away what you built, they're expecting you to break. They're not expecting you to build something better. And that's exactly what I had done. Now when I walk into my office, my name is on the door. Natalie Kim, founder and CEO. No inherited title. No shadow of someone else's dream. Just a name I rebuilt from the ground up and a business that reflects exactly who I am. The space is bright, clean, humming with energy. The kind of place where ideas flow, not egos. The walls are lined with photos not of me shaking hands with bigwigs, but of our team on launch days, birthdays, project wins. Real moments, real people. The clients. They didn't come because I begged. They came because they believed. Because I answered their calls. Because I delivered what I promised. Because I saw them not as dollar signs but as partners. Thomas Grant, one of my earliest clients, visited last month. He looked around, smiled, and said, "Feels like this is where you were always meant to be." Maybe he was right, but I don't think I was meant to be here. I fought to be here. I remember my first week after leaving the family firm. I was working 14-hour days out of a co-working space that smelled like burnt coffee and someone's reheated noodles. I had no assistant, no IT support, no built-in safety net. Just a laptop, a few loyal clients, and a vision. Now we've got a full team, a waitlist of incoming clients, and a reputation that speaks louder than any bloodline ever could. Sometimes people still ask about my father. We speak occasionally, cautiously. He hasn't asked for help. I haven't offered, not out of spite. Out of boundaries, I don't owe him a rescue. Not after he handed over everything I'd built to someone who never earned it. Jason. Last I heard, he's exploring new ventures. I wish him luck. But I won't let him use my name to prop up another illusion. Because the truth is, they underestimated the one thing. They never controlled me. My mind, my grit, my voice. And now I walk into boardrooms with my head high, not hoping to be heard, but expecting it. Because I've earned that. I no longer wonder if I'm enough. I know I am. And I don't ask for recognition. I command it. Last week, one of our junior associates knocked on my door after hours. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "How did you know it was time to walk away?" I paused, then said, "When staying meant shrinking." She nodded slowly. I think I needed to hear that. We sat for a minute in silence. I thought about the version of me who once sat in my father's office hoping he'd see what I'd built, hoping for a pat on the back that never came. And I thought about the version who walked out quietly, head high, taking nothing except everything that mattered. Because yes, my father gave my brother the business, but I took the soul of it with me, and I turned it into something better. Not a family company, a legacy of my own.